Is this truly just a comeback teaser? Or is it instead a signal too bold to be ignored? Why? Amid the euphoria of BTS's return after a long period of silence, does the spotlight seem to fall so sharply on a single name, Jungkook? That question has been hanging in the digital air since the very first second the mysterious video circulated, triggering an emotional pulse that is difficult to explain, as if armies around the world simultaneously sense the same premonition that something bigger, more personal, and perhaps more controversial is beginning. That on January 11, 2026, when a post from a fan account widely known as a dedicated BTS archive and translator, at Beautiful Soul B7, appeared on the platform X, few expected that the post would transform into a spark of global panic.
더 오퍼닝 센턴스인 커리언. 드디어 그 주가 도래했습니다.
Which means finally, that week has arrived. Sounded like an ordinary cry of excitement. Yet that is precisely where the trap lay. The sentence was not merely an expression of enthusiasm, but a gateway into a series of clues that felt far too structured to be called a coincidence. Two crucial dates immediately emerged, neatly arranged as if they had long been waiting to be released to the public. January 14, 2026, exactly at midnight KST, was promised as the moment when BTS's concert schedule would be announced. 2 days later, on January 16, 2026 at 11 a.m. Korea Standard Time, pre-orders for the new album would officially open. On paper, this looked like a standard comeback strategy. Yet the reality on the digital ground told a different story. The reaction was not merely excitement, but a wave of emotions blending euphoria, anxiety, and an almost unspoken suspicion. The teaser video accompanying the post quickly became the center of attention. Its visuals were cold, futuristic, almost sterile, with a deep black background cut by glowing red circles. Mysterious numbers and coordinates such as X2078.0247.2078 appeared without explanation, inviting wild speculation. Was this a code, a conceptual reference, or a hidden message intended only for those sharp enough to read between the visual lines? Within hours, theory after theory surfaced, and one common thread began to stand out clearly. The camera focus, the editing rhythm, and the placement of visuals seemed to direct attention toward a single central point. When the video transitioned to show the faces of the BTS members, a clip of Suga appeared, followed by the other members, yet there was an emotional pause that was difficult to explain, a subtle tension that made many fans feel that the structure of this teaser was not neutral. Important information was delivered briefly but firmly. The new album would contain 14 tracks, pre-orders would open on January 16th, and the official release was scheduled for March 20th, 2026 at 1 p.m. Korea Standard Time. Then the phrase "We're back" appeared alongside the BTS logo, which should have been a unifying climax. Yet it was precisely after that moment that sharper questions began to surface. Back as whom, and with the focus on whom? Across various timelines, the name Jungkook began to be mentioned with unusual intensity. Not because of a direct statement nor due to any official confirmation, but because of a collective perception that formed organically. Many armies felt that the aura of this teaser leaned heavily toward Jungkook, as if BTS's major 2026 comeback would carry a narrative that was more personal, more centered, and perhaps riskier. Is this a sign of a new era? Or an emotional strategy deliberately designed to shake the foundations of fan expectations? Responses to the post spread at an astonishing speed. In a short time, it accumulated hundreds of likes, hundreds of reposts, and thousands of views. These numbers were not mere statistics. They reflected the pulse of a global community preparing itself for something that felt monumental. One reply from the account at Phoenix-7_ even openly called for massive pre-order mobilization, emphasizing the importance of unique buyers and urging armies to involve family members, friends, even funders in order to break records. The call was not just an invitation to purchase, but a reflection of collective panic, the fear of being left behind, missing out, or failing to be part of history. The website 2026bts.com shared in that reply was still under construction, an empty page that only intensified the sense of mystery. That emptiness seemed to speak louder than any content could, reinforcing the feeling that whatever is coming is still being hidden, withheld, and carefully prepared. In the BTS fandom, which is highly trained to read subtle signs, such emptiness is never accidental. BTS's comeback in 2026 has indeed been long awaited, especially after the last member, Jin, completed his military service in June 2024, followed gradually by the others. Hopes for a full reunion have always existed, wrapped in expectations of music that once again blends pop, hip-hop, and BTS's signature emotional ballads. Yet this teaser seems to refuse to simply fulfill those expectations, challenges them, provokes them. It plants a question that is hard to avoid. Will this reunion unfold symmetrically, or will it instead reveal a new dynamic we have never seen before? Across different parts of the world, armies have begun to prepare in an almost ritualistic manner. Long discussions fill forums, layered theories are built in comment sections, and emotions mix between longing and anxiety. This will be BTS's year again. One fan wrote, yet beneath that optimism lies an unspoken tension. What kind of BTS year will it be? And why, since this teaser was released, does Jungkook's shadow feel so dominant, as if he has become the axis of all speculation? In the world of BTS, nothing is ever truly a coincidence. That belief is deeply rooted in the minds of ARMY. Every color, pause, camera angle, even the second when the logo appears is always assumed to carry meaning. So when the 2026 comeback teaser was released with such a precise visual structure, it was natural that the public did not accept it as mere promotional material. The red circles pulsing against a black background were not just futuristic aesthetics. For many fans, they were warning symbols, a kind of emotional alarm signaling a major change. The coordinates x2078.0247.2078 became the subject of endless discussion. The numbers were analyzed from various angles, ranging from numerology and album concept theories to speculation about a new phase in BTS's narrative. Yet among all these theories, one thing felt constant. The direction of interpretation always circled back to Jungkook. Not because of explicit data, but because of Jungkook's position within the collective imagination of the fandom, as the maknae who grew up before the public eye, a symbol of BTS's transition from the past to the future. When clips of the BTS members' faces appeared one by one, many noted how the emotions were built gradually. There was a sense of nostalgia when familiar faces appeared, but there was also a tension that was never fully released until the end of the video. As if the teaser deliberately withheld full emotional release, creating an empty space that was instead filled by speculation. And within that empty space, the name Jungkook continued to echo. Why? Because in recent years, Jungkook has often been positioned as the face of BTS in the global public eye, not officially, but through patterns of exposure, market response, and the emotional resonance he creates. Reactions on Platform X reflected this dynamic very clearly. The hashtags #BTS Comeback 2026 and #BTS dominated, but the conversations beneath them often veered in a more specific direction. Reposts, comments, and quote tweets began to question the teaser's focus, asking whether this was a purely collective comeback or the beginning of a more centralized narrative. Some fans welcomed that possibility with enthusiasm, seeing it as a natural evolution. Others responded with unease, fearing a shift in balance that has long been the foundation of BTS. The call from the account at Phoenix-7_ to mobilize pre-orders added another layer of tension. The appeal to involve family members, friends, even funders to ensure unique buyers was not merely a numbers strategy. It reflected an emergency mentality, as if this comeback were not just a celebration, but a battlefield of statistics where every number carried symbolic weight. In this context, Jungkook once again emerged as the main magnet, the figure believed capable of drawing the largest crowd, breaking records, and securing BTS's global dominance in the post-military era. The still empty 2026bts.com website only reinforced that narrative. The emptiness was read as a strategic pause, a deliberate delay meant to heighten tension. In digital communication studies, such a strategy is known as controlled anticipation, where incomplete information actually increases audience engagement. BTS and their team are known for mastering this approach, and many fans believe this teaser is the most extreme example of it yet. Yet beneath all these analyses lies a much deeper emotional layer. BTS's 2026 comeback is not merely the return of an idol group. It is the return of an era that was interrupted by the reality of military service. For many armies, the hiatus was not just a musical pause, but a period of emotional loss of routine. Jungkook, who grew alongside the fandom from a young age, often became a symbol of continuity amid that change. Thus, when this teaser was released, the emotional reaction toward Jungkook felt more intense, more personal, and more vulnerable to overinterpretation. Pop culture scholars have begun referring to this phenomenon as collective affective focus, in which a single figure becomes the gathering point of public emotion during a major transitional moment. In the context of BTS, Jungkook fulfills all the criteria for that position. He represents the past, the present, and the future at once. He is a reminder of BTS's beginnings, while also being the face most easily recognized by new audiences. It is therefore unsurprising that the 2026 comeback teaser, intentionally or not, has triggered a wave of speculation that places Jungkook as the central axis. In Indonesia, this discourse has developed with equal intensity. Local ARMY communities continue the global analysis, translating it, adapting it, and adding their own emotional context. Conversations are no longer about when will the concert be announced or how much will the album cost, but about the meaning behind every second of the teaser. Some feel this is the beginning of a new golden era. Others fear a fragmentation of public perception toward BTS as a unified whole. What is clear is that this teaser has succeeded in doing something rare in the modern music industry, creating productive panic. Panic that does not paralyze but instead mobilizes. Panic that makes people talk, analyze, and prepare. And at the center of that vortex, the name Jungkook continues to surface, not as an answer, but as the greatest unanswered question. As the euphoria begins to settle and the analysis grows deeper, a slow yet unsettling realization emerges. BTS's 2026 comeback feels far too emotionally charged, far too rich in symbolism, and far too meticulously planned to be described merely as the return of a group after a hiatus. Something much larger is at stake, and armies around the world are beginning to feel it as a pulse of anxiety that is difficult to shake. The question is no longer when the concert will be announced or how many tracks the album will contain, but rather what emotional cost must be paid for a homecoming so long awaited. Across various timelines, the tone of conversation has shifted. Where once it was dominated by shouts of excitement, now quieter yet sharper reflections begin to surface. Many fans are starting to wonder whether they are ready to receive the version of BTS that will return this time. A version no longer at the starting line of their career, no longer in a phase of proving themselves, but standing as living legends carrying the weight of near inhuman global expectations. Within this context, Jungkook once again becomes the most vulnerable yet most powerful symbol of that transition. As the youngest member who grew up under the camera's gaze since adolescence, Jungkook carries a deeply personal narrative of maturity. He is a face that armies often use as a mirror to see the passage of their own time. Thus, when this teaser emotionally feels directed toward him, many fans experience a mixture of pride and fear. Pride in seeing the figure they have followed for so long now standing at the center of global attention, and fear because that center of attention so often comes with invisible pressure. The panic that has emerged is not without reason. The history of the entertainment industry is filled with examples of how major comebacks can become double-edged swords. Expectations that soar too high can turn into collective disappointment if reality fails to fully align with imagination. Armies, long known as a highly protective fandom, have begun voicing subtle concerns about balance, mental health, and BTS's artistic direction going forward. All of these worries converge on one bitter awareness: the post-military era is not a repetition of the past, but a new phase with different risks. Yet it is precisely amid that unease that the emotional bond forming the foundation of the BTS-ARMY relationship resurfaces. The statement "we're back" in the teaser is no longer read as a mere promotional slogan, but as an emotional promise. A promise that even though time has passed and the world has changed, a red thread remains intact. And for many fans, Jungkook is the clearest embodiment of that thread. He is living continuity, the bridge between BTS's past and BTS's future. As the announced crucial dates draw closer, the atmosphere of waiting grows heavier. Every hour feels significant, every rumor feels weightier than it should. Armies are not merely waiting for information. They are waiting for emotional certainty. They are waiting for answers to questions that have not been officially spoken, yet have already settled into the collective consciousness. Will BTS return as a fully unified whole, or will this comeback reveal new dynamics that demand emotional adjustment from everyone involved? It is here that the true power of this teaser is felt. It provides no answers, but forces the public to reflect inward. It exposes just how deep the relationship between BTS and their fans truly is. A relationship built not only on music, but on narratives of growth, loss, and hope. ARMY's panic is not a sign of weakness, but proof of how meaningful this moment is to them. As the countdown toward the official announcement continues, one thing becomes increasingly clear. BTS's 2026 comeback will be a cultural event, not merely a music release. And at the center of this vortex of emotion, expectation, and fear, the spotlight on Jungkook is no coincidence. He is the symbol of everything at stake: the past that wants to be remembered, the present that must be faced, and the future that is not yet fully visible. Will that spotlight bring an even greater resurgence, or will it instead open a chapter of heavier challenges? The answer remains hidden, waiting to be revealed in its own time. But one thing is already certain. Since that teaser was released, nothing has truly been calm. ARMY has been awakened, emotions have been set in motion, and the world is now staring at the same focal point, waiting for the moment when BTS, and perhaps especially Jungkook, will determine the direction of the next chapter of the story. In the end, whatever unfolds next will not simply test BTS as artists, but will also test the emotional resilience of the bond they share with their fans. The 2026 comeback stands poised as a moment of reckoning, where nostalgia, ambition, and uncertainty collide in full view of the world. ARMY understands this instinctively, that supporting BTS now means embracing complexity, accepting change, and trusting a journey that no longer offers the comfort of predictability. And as the final seconds before revelation draw nearer, one truth quietly settles in. This comeback is not about returning to what once was, but about daring to step forward into what must come next, together.